is a great deal of misinformation out there in terms of climate change, a great deal of ignorance. There's a great deal of willful misinformation out there because there are many groups who see any steps to combat climate change as against their vested interests.
There's a couple things you can't really dispute. 16 of the last 17 years have been the hottest years on record. I appreciate that we want to show two sides of the story, but the two sides aren't equal here.
People ask, well, how do we know that the carbon dioxide rise that we've seen over the past 100 years is us? Well, in terms of things like isotopic signatures of the carbon dioxide, our fingerprints are all over this. In other words, we control the planet now. What does this portend for the ski industry? I don't think it's good news.
Vince Sanders, a product developer for Never Summer Industries. Obviously it's in our best interest to use all the materials on the wood cores of the snowboards, on the side cuts. We'll plane it down, laminate it together, and use it for some of the longboards. We're using a biodegradable emulsion for our snowboard and ski grinders. Our boards are obviously handmade here in our factory in Denver, Colorado, so we're not, putting that huge carbon footprint on getting our boards made in China. We're not transporting boards, crating them over all the way to the U.S.
We look at the snow cover of the Northern Hemisphere this year. We find that it was essentially at a record low in May and nearly so in June. Are we seeing overall trends in global snow extent? Yes, those trends are starting to firm up. So we're going to be seeing a shorter snow season. There is no going back at this point. What we've got to do is keep it from getting out of hand.
We have less boards in the landfill. We have a really low defective rate because the boards are handmade. They're looking at each board. If there is a problem, we're not going to have 30 of them. We're going to have 1 or 2 versus something that's mass produced. The few defective boards we have end up, as benches. Another thing is we'll repair boards. So we have customers that have 10-year-old boards. Instead of saying, you know what, that board's pretty shot, you may as well just throw that in a dumpster, and our boards last a long time. So we're keeping as many boards as we can out of the landfills.
If you ask what the snow industry, say the skiing industry, for example, could do to combat climate change, my answer would be you can't do a whole lot about it. We're committed at this point, even if we were to somehow flatline how much carbon dioxide we have in the atmosphere today, there's still warming, what we call in the pipeline, that we haven't seen yet. Simple things like turning out the light bulbs when you leave the room, or driving slower. By themselves, these are all small steps, very, very tiny if you think of the grand scheme of things. But the important thing they do is start to change the mindset that conservation is cool.
We're strong. We're friends of Birthday Pass. Birthday Pass is non-motorized, so this year we're donating a split board, and we're wanting to see the progression for using your legs to get those lines in the backcountry versus using a cat or a heli or a snowmobile or even a chairlift for that matter.
That was so sick!
I admire all these different causes to combat climate change. What they can do, how effective they can be, is not clear. When in the future might we see a new Colorado, in the sense that snowfall, this winter snowpack, is so much smaller than we see today that it has serious impacts on the ski industry? For example, the ski industry becomes non-viable. I think we could be looking at that in 30 years. Ignorance is the enemy, but you've got a strong weapon against ignorance, and that is education.